Okay. With 3 lines from the bottom. So we're holding here, the Gemara asked the question, how is a single witness believed to testify regarding the Shema of the get in Davar Sheber Post Mishnayim? Now, before we go, that's where we're at. So Rabbeinu Tam asked a phenomenal question. The Gemara at one point said, it's Erech Adam Bisurin. The Gemara says, you should have 2 witnesses, Erech Adam Bisurin. So Rabbeinu Tam asks, it's a one-line of the Tosis. Hiksher Rabbeinu Tam, Matshuva Yizos, Ikar Aget Yochiach, Shetzorch L'chos Mishnayim. You're telling me the reason why a single witness is believed to testify to that it was written Lishma, because it's Erech Adam Bisurin. But Rabbeinu Tam, look at the document. The document has how many witnesses on it? It has 2 witnesses. So if the document needs 2 witnesses to authenticate the document regarding the Lishma, to give it validity, how can you tell me it's Erech Adam Bisurin? It's clearly the subject matter is not Erech Adam Bisurin. If you have 2 witnesses on the get, evidently it's Davar Shebe'erva. So what is even the consideration, even for a moment, to say Erech Adam Bisurin? That's Rabbeinu Tam's question. Look at the document. The document has 2 witnesses. Clearly, it's not Erech Adam Bisurin. B'tiritz, he answers, Dochi Kamer. The Erech Adam Bisurin b'chaygavna she'ikar get nase kvar. The get was written. To establish a get without witnesses is what? It's a piece of paper. That's all it is. What gives it the status of a document? It's a legal document. You have to have witnesses. So even if you have witnesses, but what about it's lacking in a certain element, right? It can't function in that capacity. So to establish is it a document that has the ability to divorce, that's Davar Shebe'erva. That changes it from paper to a legal document. Now there's an aspect of it which gives it its force. Okay? So he says, now he just has no was written. The document is now I have a question. What kind of document is it? Was it written Lishmo? The Gemara held that's Erech Adam Bisurin. On that the Gemara says no, but factually without that testimony, the document is not functional, that's Davar Shebe'erva. The more one say it's like one step removed. The Gemara says regardless how many steps removed, but factually if the value of that testimony will validate the get, you can't say that's classified as anything but a Davar Shebe'erva. So if it's Davar Shebe'erva, you should need minimally 2 witnesses. So how do you consider having 1 witness? That's how Rabbeinu Tam learns the Gemara.
Well, if a husband writes a get to his wife and gives it to his wife without any signatures and firm witnesses, isn't that a good get?
Firstly, that's Ksav Yad. It's written with his own handwriting.
Oh, let's say Sofer wrote it and he gives it over.
According to Rameir. We're going according to Rameir. According to Rameir, it's not a good get. Rameir says, Edi Chasima Karsa, you have to have witnesses on the document. Without witnesses on the document, it's not a viable document. We'll have it. We'll discuss this. We'll get to the Gemara. Okay.
When do you distinguish? Because like, you have sometimes with the witness just determine who's the face, who's get the document.
No. So that we discussed this. You were here yesterday. If you have, let's say you find a get, and somebody identifies that he lost the get, even with a siman, you have a perforation under a certain letter, which clearly tells us he lost it. He's believed. You return it. How do you return it? It's Davar Shebe'erva. Because if it's not the get that he lost, the answer is, because what's my question? It's the monetary ownership. Right? So monetarily, that's sufficient. Once it's established monetarily it's yours, then we can go to the next step. But if the whole discussion is only relevant to the divorce document, that's Davar Shebe'erva. We gave an example. The knife for shchita, or the mikveh regarding the person. What's the question of the kashrus, the mikveh? It's only, is he Torah? That's the discussion. The knife, right? The knife has a presumed status. What is it relevant to? Was the shchita valid? So the moment you say that's its relevance, now they have other things into playing. You have the chazokah of the animal, right? And you have the present nick on the knife. Okay, so good.
If I find a document in the street, a loan document, witnesses on it, and it conforms from the form of the document to what a loan document should be, don't I say it's valid?
And you're able to identify the document as your document. No. Again, is a question of who lost it. It's a whole discussion of Mitzvah. Maybe the borrower lost it. He paid the document, and they lost it. You're not permitted to return it to the lender. The lender says, I lost it. The borrower says, I lost it. Who do you return it to? You don't return it. Because there's a possibility that the borrower lost the document. Who lost the document? Even if one of them is able to to identify, with the hole in it, as we said.
With the loan document, let's suppose a lender has a loan document, and that lender owns money to me. Can he give me his loan document?
Well, we had an argument.
Then I can
We had
force it to.
we had an argument. There's an argument to transfer a loan document. Do you have to write an additional document? That's only how does he acquire it. Legally, he can do it. Either just giving you the document, that's enough. Now he represents the original lender, or he has to do it more. That's OC's Nikdas B'Mesiro. Means something which was, the obligation came as a result of the document. Because it's more than just a loan. You could only collect from fixed property, right? Only because it's a recorded, it's a documented loan. If you wouldn't document, you can't. How does that transfer take place? Is it sufficient just to give the document, or you need something more than the document? But factually, the third party could collect.
Okay, so see what I'm going now to try to understand what Rabbi Tom is saying here. With a loan document like this, if I found it in the street, so it may not be the borrower or the lender, it may in fact be a third party.
Okay, so let it be a third party. It doesn't make a difference. But you cannot collect from the borrower. As long as we're able to entertain the fact that the borrower may have lost it, we're not considering it may belong to another lender. The borrower may have lost it.
That's the possibility.
And that creates the problem. So it's the burden of proof now lies on whoever wants to collect. If we have no right to return document to anyone.
The reason I brought up the loan document is the document itself with the signatures on it stands as an official.
Correct.
It's
Correct.
official. It
Correct.
means somebody owns money to somebody.
Correct.
We're coming into a separate question, but
Was
whether
it paid?
I can collect on it.
Correct.
if I find it.
Correct.
But with a get, if I find a get in the street, let's say, or this get that was produced, it has signatures, it conforms, everything is good. We're saying it doesn't have any force unless you have another person coming to validate the get.
Wait a second.
We're saying you still need on top of that somebody else.
Right, correct.
But the piece of paper itself doesn't have any force in of itself.
But because there's an issue. There's an issue. What is the issue? Maybe the sofer had written the get, was not fully proficient in its laws.
Or he didn't have the proper kavanah.
No. It doesn't say that. Doesn't say you have the kavanah. Well, that's lishma. What's the kavanah? That's it. That means he wasn't aware that he has to have that. And if he wasn't aware of that, then the get is just, has no value whatsoever.
But we don't say, for instance, the fact that two witnesses put their signature on the piece of paper means that they asked that question.
No, the witnesses don't know any more than the sofer. The witnesses don't know any more than the sofer. The husband instructed the get should be written, and the sofer, and so he has clearly, and the witnesses heard him instruct him, and all of a sudden now the sofer pulls out a document and says, now signed. So, but that document, when he wrote that document, it was without the what? Without the intent was not for this particular couple. Or we had a case later. We're going to have a case. Two documents with identical information. So the document was written lishma for couple A, but it's not for couple B. So what the witnesses signed, they signed for couple A. But now the sofer gives the person, the couple B, that document to be used. So the shliach has to attest to the fact that it was written specifically for couple B and not for couple A.
So the two Adam signing don't know, really they don't know who that sofer wrote for. They just signed the document.
No. We're talking about, let's say they signed it, they do them. According to Rameh, they have to sign it lishma. They have to sign it lishma.
So they have to know that the sofer is right.
Yeah, they're there. They hear the husband instructing sofer to write. They're there, and they sign.
Okay.
But what happens now? that person chooses not to divorce his wife with that document.
Right.
And he leaves the document with the sofer, and the sofer gives it to another couple who have identical information.
Right.
It's a problem. It's not a valid document.
Right.
So if he's proficient in the laws, he's not going to do such a thing to sofer. We can say with certainty
Yeah.
the document was destroyed or marked in a way where that mistake cannot be made. But if he's not proficient, then we have a problem. There's a chance maybe it was used. So therefore, the shliach has to attest to the fact that it was not. I saw the document written particularly, specifically for this couple.
And that's what we mean by lishma.
That's lishma.
That's lishma, that the Adam know that document was written lishma by the sofer. For that.
No, they signed lishma.
Right, yeah, correct.
But the shliach has to know this. The agent who delivers, and that's what he's attesting to.
Correct.
Okay?
Rabbi, wouldn't you say that if someone were asked to be a witness, two people were asked to be a witness to a document, sofer is writing, they're going to say, what is this? What are you asking me to witness? So the sofer says, this is a document that is a divorce document between Mr. A and Miss B, Mrs. B.
It's not good enough. It's not good enough.
And I want you to witness.
They have to be instructed by the husband to sign. They have to be authorized by the husband to sign. It's not enough just having in mind. The witnesses also have to be authorized.
So that process has to take place.
Right, correct.
But the question is, we don't know if it did take place.
We don't know, right.
Isn't there a presumption that if a
No,
document...
it's only a presumption if the sofer knew the law. If the sofer knew the law, he instructed them, so then that's the presumption. But if the sofer is ignorant in this, he's not proficient, so there's no presumption. I mean, the Gemara is going to say in the moment now that even Chutz La'aretz, they are proficient. It's not necessarily the proficiency of itself, but sufficiently proficient. Right? So therefore, that's why the Chachamim were able to rely on testimony of one witness. And the Gemara is going to say, because even if the husband should come, he really has no basis. It's not a concern. Halachically, it's not a concern. It's more than rove. The Gemara says even a mayor. It's such an infinitesimal chance, we dismiss it, but it's enough for the husband to make trouble. It's enough for the husband to make trouble. That if he wants to cast kind of doubt regarding the document, we don't want that.
So the document does stand on its own.
Now, the Gemara says this document stands.
So that's okay.
And that's why a single witness, the shliach, is sufficient, because aguna, that's why we rely on the testimony of a single witness.
You don't even need
You don't need that. You don't need that. Correct. That's what the Gemara is going to say at this moment.
And when you overlay on that we said that the parties have to be identified explicitly. This nickname, that. So you have to go to a very...
But every sofer knows that. But we say, but every sofer is aware of that. The sofer would have asked those questions, and we could say that with certainty, because that's part of the proficiency. He's an expert in writing this kind of document.
I mean, the idea that, Shmuel ben Yitzchak, and that's all that the get says.
Well, maybe there's a presumption. There are no nicknames. There are no other references to those people. The way they would do it today, Shmuel ben Yitzchak, Hamachuna Samuel, Hamachuna Sammy, Sam, or whatever, any other.
That's what I'm saying. And he lives in such and such a place?
No, the location, definitely you have to write. You have to identify.
And he lives at such and
The
such
city-
an address?
No, you have to. It's really the location
Born
where.
in-
No, you have to. It's where the city, where the get is being written. You don't have to identify where he lives. It's where the get is being written. We'll have this later, regarding what information has to be. The date, the city. That's all you need. And you have to identify the city. Let's say you have Washington. Is it Washington State, Washington D.C.? I mean, it has to identify. Therefore, you have to identify the river. That it's which river? Like when they write a get in Manhattan, in New York, it says Al Kaif. The Hudson. They write on the Hudson River. That's where they write in the get. Because you may have in New York. You have New York in New Jersey. There's a New York something. What? West New York. Whatever it is. Whatever it is. Okay, but you have to, in that situation you have to identify to understand exactly which New York you're speaking about. You have Florida, New York. You have Florida. In the state of Florida.
So the bottom line is, if we find a get somewhere, and in the form of it, it looks like it's good.
Presumption, it is a valid get.
Presumption is it's a valid
But you
get.
can't return the get because you don't know who lost it unless he identifies it. Just like returning a lost article. So if he gives sufficient identification, you return it.
Okay,
But that's not a Davish Erva, right? As we said, because the Torah says, because the monetary value, you have a right to return based on his identifying it as his get. Once I know it's his, now we could use it for whatever it's meant to be used for. It's a two-step process.
So the Eidim are known, signatures are known, they don't need to have it.
We're not even going with the signature. That's the next discussion. The question, maybe it's a forgery. Maybe it's a forgery. That's the Gemara's going to say that that's Rava. Right now we're going Rabba.
So, Rabbi, if a sefer has a get, and let's suppose that the text of a get is a standard text, the only thing that's unique between this get and that get are the spaces where
No, you can't. In the form, even the form has. We're going to have this later also.
So for can have the form
And just fill in the spaces. Can't. No.
That doesn't work.
No. Everything has to be written from scratch.
But a loan could be written this way.
Definitely, because you don't need lishma, and right? You don't need any of that. Okay, so the Gemara answers. Rov Bikinheim, that the vast majority of Sofrim, they're proficient in the laws of lishma. Now he says, "Vafilu Rab Meir the Chaysh L'Miuto," and even according to Rab Meir, who normally he's concerned about the minority, and that's why he doesn't follow Rov. Now, what's Rab Meir? A case, you have a man dies and he's married to a minor, childless. So the question is, does the minor sister-in-law, does she fall to Yibum? Chacham say yes, she falls to Yibum. Why? Because the majority of women are not islanders. They will develop as a woman. There's a minority who don't develop. So Reb Meir says, since Chayshil Miuta, since there is a minority, we have to be concerned about the minority. You have to wait till she becomes a Nara, till she becomes an adult. Once she becomes an adult, then you could perform Yibum. But until then, you can't perform Yibum. Okay? So that's because that's a miut. There are a miut of women, a minority of women who don't develop. But regarding a sofer not to be proficient in this particular area, it's unheard of. And because it's such a small minority, therefore, even Reb Meir is in agreement, we don't even pay attention to that. Therefore, we could say on the Torah level with certainty, this document is a valid document. So therefore, it's purely rabbinical, he says. Stam Safri the dining migmagrir. Rabbanu da Asrich. You only need this rabbinically. That itself has to attest to the Lishma. V'hochos, so therefore, since it's only rabbinical, Mishum Akuna Kilbo Rabbanon. Now, there's an argument, Rosh says, why did the Rabbanon, if this is the reality, in Eretz you don't say, you have to say Fonei Nechtam. Right? You don't. So why Chutzlef? We're saying Stam Safri Dani Migme Griri. It's such a small minority, we didn't pay attention to it. So why Chutzlef do I pay attention to it? In Eretz you don't pay attention to it. So the answer is, in Eretz it's unheard of. It's not even the smallest minority. It's not possible. In Eretz every sofer. In Chutz there is a minority, although it's a very small minority, which on the Torah level it's not even concerned about. Even Reb Meir agrees. But if the husband, if he wants a cast kind of on the get, aspersion about the get, he can make trouble. What do you need it for? So the Chachamim, to counter the husband, maybe would want to create some murmurings about the get. We want to remove that possibility. How do you remove it? By the shliach attesting the fact that it was written lishma. That's how Tosas is. It's called laz. He shouldn't be motzi laz on the document. He shouldn't cast any aspersions on the get. V'shemeguna kol b'rabbanan. So the Gemara asks a question. Haikulu chumro. This is not a leniency. It's a chumra. It's a stringency. Why? Di matzchul trei lo asibal ba'arer uposale. He says, if you initially have two witnesses, two people delivering the get, the husband, even if he would come to try to make some level of trouble, he'll be dismissed immediately. You have two witnesses, they don't pay attention to him. Chad osibal ma'aril poselei. A single witness, he could counter him. It's one against one.
We're still talking.
Wait. Poselei. I want you to hear the question. If you'd have two,
Easy.
then it's not a question.
He won't.
It's not even consideration. He knows they're not going to pay attention to him. But if there's only one shaliach, he knows if he wants to make trouble, he can make trouble. So what's the cool? That's a chumrah.
But Rabbi, this case that we're talking about, really, you don't need any witnesses, but we're talking about this one specific.
No, you don't need a shliach.
You don't need a shliach, excuse me. You don't, but there's one case that's so far-fetched, according to what we were saying.
We're concerned about laz. Laz is, we don't want anybody even to question. You know, I once said, Yitzchak looked, his facial features were identical to his father. Why? Because what Hashem do it? Because of Laz. Could you imagine? We're speaking about the pedigree of Klal Yisrael. That's Laz means murmurings. Murmurings. Some kind of aspersion is brought up. People say, how do you know the Jews are really the children of the patriarchs? Maybe Avimelech fathered Yitzchak. How do you know? So Hashem had to bring about a miracle that he looked exact like his father. What's the likelihood? Well, you never know. We don't want people to say you never know. So husbands say, factually it's true, but factually this was. This sofa, I found it afterwards, he really wasn't. He wasn't that expert who you think he was. So that's the case. She's married, it's a problem. Eshes ish, she has children and mamzerim. Something we want to cover it in a way that the question, even if it's broached, we dismiss it immediately. So how do you do that? Eid echad. So now the Gemara says, but why? How does that dismiss it? If the husband comes, he still can make the same trouble. By casting aspersion on the get, may not be valid. He can make the same tzoros. As without the shliach attesting to it, even when he tests, it's chad keneged chad. It's one against one.
And two, he can't do that.
No, not if he's eidim. You have viable eidim, witnesses. So the Gemara says an interesting concept. I mentioned, we had the Gemara says in Chulin that normally if you have, let's say, milk falling into meat, or a forbidden substance falling into a kosher substance, what is the ratio of Rami? Qualified to be a rabbi in Jersey. Okay, 60-1. You have a ratio 60-1, it's subsumed. What about if you have a less than 60-1? Is there a theoretical possibility it could be kosher? What do you need 60-1? What is the rationale of 60-1? Because Chazal said 60 is a level of dilution that unless it's a davachorof, unless it's a spice, you will not detect the minority and the majority. That 60 is definitely, you've reached a level of dilution, the minority will not be detected in the majority. But what is the principle? The principle is it's subsuming in majority. It's majority versus minority. That's all you need. The only reason why you need 60 is because you need that degree of dilution. But it's possible maybe 50-1 would be enough. But we're not sure when it's 50, when is it 60. Sometimes maybe 40-1 be. Let's say it's a very bland element that intermingle. Maybe 40-1 is enough. So therefore Chazal said 60 is not to be concerned. We don't have to be concerned. So let's say you have a situation, you have less than 60-1, where the person can't make the evaluation. It may have been 60, may not have been 60. What do you do? So the Mar says, in Chulin, you go and you get yourself a kfela, you get an expert taster, where over there, if in fact he lies, he's going to have a financial consequence because he's a professional. And if a Jew's not permitted to eat it, taste it, right? And you get an expert taster, and you say, by the way, does this taste right? You don't tell him what, when. So if he tells you, it tastes fine. I said, does it taste, and do you sense any other taste other than what meat? He says, no, perfect. You're permitted to eat it. You can rely on the testimony of the single witness who's not Jewish. Not Jewish. So the Shach and Taz both ask, we ruled that Tam Kik is Doraisa. That when you taste the minority and the majority, not only milk and meat, it's a Torah violation. How do you rely on testimony of a single witness? If it would be certain he's a Jew is one thing, but he's a goy. A non-Jew has no belief. So if he has no basis of belief, how do you rely on it? On his professional opinion. So the Shach and Taz both say the same thing, because we have a principle, we have a concept known as Anan Sadi. We could say with certainty, factually, that if he's going to be caught in a lie, a non-Jew cannot be relied upon where it's based upon his credibility. That's a Torah law. But if it's based on fact that he's not going to lie because it's going to impinge and it's going to have a serious consequence on his livelihood, we could say with certainty he's not lying. And here, since he'll be caught in lie immediately, because when you eat it, you'll know immediately whether he lied to you or not, he definitely will tell the truth. So it's based on Anan Sadi. We could say with certainty. Has nothing to do with what the Torah says, halachic, what the halachic standing of the goy is. It has to do with what the reality is. Reality is not going to lie to you. Therefore, you're permitted to lie in his testimony. The Mechaber rules this way even today. We don't rely on timus kfela, but it has relevance to us. How does that have relevance to us? It has relevance to us. Let's say a person makes a neder. He's not going to drink wine. And then the wine intermingles into something else. And the man made a neder. He's not going to drink wine. Is he permitted to eat that food item? Right? He made a neder. So the Rama says, although we don't rely on timus kfela, but we rely on what? If a Jew would taste it. Now, you give it to a Jew who's not bound by a neder, he says, I don't taste any wine in the food product, a food item. The person can eat it.
Is that by accident or on purpose?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't mean. Another Jew prepared it. He's permitted to have wine.
Right. I'm saying if someone makes a neder not to have wine.
No, then and he intentionally adds it.
Someone else intentionally does it, but it may not add taste.
No, that doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
And he did it on his behalf, or he did it on his own behalf. He did it for the person. No. It makes a difference. If he did it on behalf of the person who made the neder, then the person cannot have it, even if you have the right ratio. But he did it for himself, and he wants to invite him to his house.
Okay.
And the question is, do you taste the wine or don't you taste the wine, or whatever the ingredient may be? So based on the tasting of the Jew, he's permitted to eat it. The Jew says, I don't taste it. I told the story with Shmuel Salant. When I tell the story, you remember the story. I told the Mechaber rules that we rely on timus kfela, on the tasting of the non-Jewish expert. Rama says we don't. So there was a wedding in 1895 in Yerushalayim, and if you understood the level of poverty that was there, and they had a wedding, and they served whatever chicken, and chicken was in the stew, versus beans and vegetables. So, and accidentally some milk fell into the pot, and they weren't sure if he had shishim. Yeah, they didn't know if it was a 60-to-1 ratio. Could you imagine? I mean, we're talking about the financial hardship that we brought upon the wedding. They'd have to cancel the wedding. That was the main course of the wedding. So they went to Reb Shmuel Salant. What should we do? So he said, get a Sephardi, let him taste it. Yeah, no, let a goy taste it. A goy taste it. So, and then a Sephardi is permitted to eat it. And now the Sephardi says, I don't taste milk, because the Sephardi could rely on the non-Jewish taster. And now the Sephardi says, I don't taste milk. And now, based on the testimony of the Sephardi, now the Ashkenazi could eat it. That was the psak of Reb Shmuel Salant. Famous psak.
What if he knew it was, if they knew it was 30 to 1? They knew it, and they wanted to know.
And the non-Jew tastes it, and he says, doesn't? It's machlokas rishonim. That's machlokas. Is it only when it's a question, is it 60 or not? That's a machlokas. According to the vast majority of rishonim, you're permitted to eat it. Okay? So the Gemara adds, no. So the Gemara says, but what have we've created a problem? If you have two, there's no problem, because we'll totally dismiss whatever the husband says. But if you have one, it's one against one, right? Osi balum posele, oskar osi balum mare or posele. Now, keva de omamar, b'fnei kamen no snow though. When the shlich delivers the get, how many people have to be present when he gives the get? Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chanina. It's an argument. Rabbi Yochanan, charom b'fnei beis. One says there has to be the presence of two witnesses. Charom b'fnei shlosha. We'll have this later. The other one has to be the presence of three. Okay? The equivalent of a bezdin. So as a result of that, meikora medik dayik. V'lo osir rui nafshei. So the shliach initially, the shliach himself, he wants to be seen as a responsible person. Correct? So he's going to go to the nth degree to make sure when he received that get, initially, when he was appointed with the shliach to deliver the get, that he left no stone unturned to make sure that get was written correctly. So therefore, we're saying, is it a concern? It may have not been written lishma. It's not a concern. The husband may want to cause trouble, because he'll say, well, you never know. But if that is the case, this agent would have never gotten involved. Knowing that he may have trouble with the husband later, coming and casting some aspersion about the get, he's not getting involved. So why did he get involved? Because he meticulously researched the fact that this was written lishma. Because otherwise he's going to look bad, the shliach. What am I delivering here? So that establishes an anansadi, so we could say with certainty when the husband comes, the husband's totally ignored. Because the shliach would have never put himself in the position that ultimately his level of reliability is to be put in question. So we're establishing an anan tzadi. Okay? Ula Rava. So we've answered Rabbah. According to Rabbah, the reason why we rely on testimony of one witness, because the vast majority of Sofrim are proficient in Lishma. It's not a concern. Now what about Rava? Rava said, why do we have to say Fonei Nechtam? Because you have to authenticate every document, because the husband could come and claim it's a forgery. Right? That's what he could claim. It's a forgery. So I asked the question which we didn't have the answer to when we learned it. What do you have to bring? What do you have to authenticate? The signatures. What do we say? The shliach should say, I have witnesses. I was appointed to be a shliach. Once we know he's an agent, the husband's not claiming. What's the husband claiming? It was forged. What you delivered is a forgery. You should say, I never appointed you to be my agent. Right? That should be enough. The moment I'm an agent, what does an agent mean? That means you gave me this document. So how could you claim it's a forgery? See, what could it say? What could he say? What? He gave him a forgery. That's what he gave him, a forged document. That's what he's going to have to say. That's the only basis. Even though it's a little difficult with Tosas. Because Tosas himself says, even if it was written Lishma, he could say the Edom are Apsulim. The Edom were related. So Tosas says, the man himself is not going to do anything to cause her. That vicious, he's not the husband. But he'll say, factually, maybe it was a forgery. It's a little difficult. It's difficult. We'll leave it at that point at this moment. So Mari asks, if you have a loan document, and someone wants to collect the loan document, and the borrower is not present, and you want to collect from his assets, what's the halacha? What does Bezdin say? Bezdin says to the person, first certify the document. Authenticate it, that it's not a forgery, then we'll talk about you could collect. And he has to substantiate the document. It's called, he has to have kiyum. You have kiyum shtoris, it has to be substantiated. Otherwise, we're not going to let him collect with the document, because there's a chance it may be a forgery. Tosas says in Ksubis, why do you have to substantiate a document rabbinically? Rabbinically, it's rabbinical. What's the reason? Because l'shafus chai l'chol beria. There's a Gemara. The Gemara says in Bava Metzia, what happens if a person is a moda b'miktzas? Partial admission. You have to swear on the Torah level. No splitting. You have to swear, right? Moda b'miktzas take a shvua d'oraisa. So let's say a person is not qualified to take a shvua. Let's say a person is a thief. So let's say a person goes to a thief, he says, and he lends the thief $50. $50, and he says to the thief, I lent you $1,000. So the thief says, but I borrowed 50. The moment he says, I borrowed 50, his motive mixes, he has to swear. The law is if you don't swear, you have to pay. So every person who's not qualified to swear, he could be victimized. So how do we protect every one of these individuals? Lo shafkas chavos, and Mara says it's called hipoch shvua. We take the shvua, the oath that would be on the person who, and put it on the one who's making the claim. You claim your claim is true, you swear. So this would protect, otherwise the lo shafkas chai l'choberia. Nobody could be left alive. Everybody becomes victimized. So to protect the victim, we put the oath on the one who's making the claim. So the same thing it says over here. Why did they legislate the laws of substantiating a document? Because if you come to court and collect from the estate or from the assets when the man is not here, what's going to be? Everybody will forge a document, or people may do it. And how do you know it's not a forgery? Chacham say, something, if the Loved, the borrower is not here, or the one who claimed gave you a gift is not here, it has to be substantiated. Because otherwise there's a concern. You may have forged a document. They forged a document. Otherwise, how do we protect anybody? So the legislating the laws of certifying the document is to protect people, that society should not be victimized by dishonest people. Okay, that's the concept. But it's a drabon, it's not a doraisa. It's not a doraisa. So now by the get, you have a get. Do we know the get? Who wrote the get? Liboy Trey. It's no different. If the whole concept was if it's substantiating a document, how do you normally substantiate documents? You have to have two witnesses. So why over here is one witness sufficient? Same answer, according to Rava. So the Gemara says verbatim what we said before, except here it's more difficult. Again, let's explain it. If the concept of substantial document is because right? If that is the reason, so why is there really consideration? You should have to have that you shouldn't need two witnesses, right? The Gemara said, "Bidi akim shtoros." So if the svar is what lo shafs chayv choberio, seeming that doesn't apply here, right? Doesn't apply here, but there's still a chance of maybe a forgery. You know, she wanted it out, so it's forged. So that's the reason why one witness is enough, right? When you deal with monetary, that's lo shafs chayv choberio. We have to protect society from being victimized. Here it's not a question of victimization, but factually, a woman wants to get out of a divorce, you know what do you do? She has somebody forge a document. It's not the husband. She has a document. So how do we cover that possibility? He'll test the validity of the document. So that's why this is different than Kim Shtoros. But factually, it's Davar Shabbat. Since she has a Cheskes Iser, Eishes Ish, how do we rely on testimony of one witness? To be continued.